Test, test, test. YouTube.
Welcome to TNCRadio.live, your free 24/7, 365.
Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Test, 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 test. Test, test, test. Hello, David.
Hello, it's Tom
All right.
today. I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing okay. You don't need your video. We just do it all by sound. So you didn't even have to put on a clean shirt.
Oh no, it's a good thing I showered last year.
Yeah. I try to squeeze one in, at least once every 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's a pretty good plan. Oh, heard somebody else.
Hello.
That's Shelley.
Hey,
How you doing, David?
I'm good. How about you?
Not bad. So you've been keeping busy?
Yes. Yeah. It's been busy.
Where's your much better half?
I'm not sure what she's doing today. She'll be running around North Dakota somewhere.
Okay.
Shelley asked me to come on to talk about mental health, so I told her that I'm going to be on the radio, but I didn't.
She's more than welcome. It occurred to me that I had forgotten to email her, and I certainly didn't want to exclude her. I apologize on that.
Well, I can send her a message.
Yeah, she wants to come on. She's more than welcome. That was my bad, and I apologize.
Hi, Shelley.
Oh, hi, Tom.
Well, you know what's really cool right now?
It's not where I am. It's kind of humid and hot.
It's that right now I am watching this on my big screen TV, and we're simulcasting out over what do you call it? YouTube.
Oh, cool.
So I'm gonna turn.
Newsmax's newest show with Steve Cortez. It's called Cortez and Pellegrino. Newsmax is on all major cable systems. If you don't get it, call your cable system. Tell them you want Newsmax, or you can switch. Plus, get Newsmax free on most smart TVs and OTT devices like Roku, Pluto, Zumo, and Amazon Fire. Millions have already downloaded the free Newsmax app on their smartphones. So start watching America's fastest growing cable news channel, because Newsmax is real news for real people.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is opposing the formation of an independent commission to probe the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Speaking on the Senate floor, the Kentucky Republican calling the proposal slanted and accusing House Democrats of acting in bad faith. House Minority Leader from California, Kevin McCarthy, also not a fan of the commission. The House set to vote on the proposal Wednesday afternoon. It would then head to the Senate. After getting vaccinated, Ohioans are flocking to a website.
1 week after announcing a weekly $1 million drawing for vaccinated Ohioans, Governor Mike DeWine says the state is setting records for getting shots in arms. Last Friday saw the highest vaccination day in 3 weeks, with an increase in people aged 30 to 74 getting vaccinated of 6% since the lottery's announcement. Starting May 26th and running for 5 weeks, a $1 million prize will be awarded to one Ohioan who has received at least one dose of COVID vaccine. From the USA Radio News Ohio Bureau, I'm Dan Naraki.
You're listening to USA Radio News.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go and pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-215-5141. 800-215-5141. That's 800-215-5141.
Testimony is underway in Christian Rivera's murder trial in Iowa. The illegal immigrant living in Iowa is charged with first-degree murder in the death of former University of Iowa student Molly Tibbetts.
He admits taking Molly's body out of the trunk. He admits seeing blood on Molly's body and neck.
That's Poweshiek County Attorney Bart Claver telling the jury about Rivera's police interview. Claver adding Rivera admitted to chasing Tibbetts while she was out for a jog and becoming angry when she threatened to call the police.
He admitted taking Molly into the field, placing her face up, and putting corn stalks on her body.
New Yorkers fully vaccinated against coronavirus can remove their masks in many settings starting today. But Mayor Bill de Blasio is still urging caution in the city, and all city employees are mandated to wear masks in offices because there will be a mix of vaccinated and non-vaccinated people. As far as the new CDC guidelines out there that are still causing some confusion among folks, former CDC Director Dr. Richard Bessler tells ABC's Good Morning America,
one of the hardest things to deal with in a pandemic is the fact that things are uncertain and no guidance is ever final. So as you learn more, as the situation changes, you adjust and you adapt and you change guidance. And that's confusing.
For USA Radio News, I'm Tim Berg.
Want to advertise on TNCRadio.live? Take advantage of great discounts for 2021. Check out the sponsors page at TNCRadio.live or send email to info@TNCRadio.live.
Good afternoon. This is TNCRadio.live, and you are listening to the Truckers Network Radio Show. And now here's your host, Shelley Johnson.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, this is the Truckers Network Radio Show on TNCRadio.live, where we offer the news, sports, weather, traffic, and entertainment that commercial drivers want to hear. Information is something that we feature a lot. And when it comes from professional drivers, that's definitely something very important, something our listeners definitely want. We have David Henry of the Crazy Canuck Truckin' Podcast with us today, and that's a really popular podcast. We carry it here on TNCRadio.live too. Welcome, David. Thank you so much for being on the show again.
Thank you, Shelley. I appreciate you asking me to come back. It's been nice.
What have you been up to? You're a driver. Where have you been driving, and what's been going on since the last time we chatted?
Well, yes, I'm a driver. I run long haul, so the last the last month and a half or so, been running a lot of West Coast in the U.S. and then back to Central Canada, and trying to, it's always a challenge to be busy and take the time off that I need to take off for my mental and physical health. It's easy to be busy and to just go all the time, but to know when to stop, know when to slow down, that's really important for us these days. And
oh, absolutely.
Fortunately, I've been learning that, and not as crazy as I used to be.
To temper our pace, I think it's harder for some more than others. I know that I'm kind of a go person, and I have to just kind of take a step back and say, all right, let's take a break. And I think a lot of drivers really push themselves. Wouldn't you say that, David?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's been our culture for ever since trucking's been around, as far as I know. And when I got into driving in the mid to later 80s, then it was, what do you mean you only want to work 70 hours a week? You need to do more than that. You need to run more logbooks. You need to go faster. You need, and it was really ingrained in us. And fortunately, the younger generation doesn't see that. They are more on board with working a regular week. And, when it comes to electronic logs, that was a big pushback from a lot of drivers is, well, I can't do what I used to do. And I've been like, hallelujah, you should look at it as a blessing that you can't push yourself, because you can think that you can keep going, but what's going to end up happening is that you're going to crash and burn sometime, or your life is going to be shorter. It's really important to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I remember as a kid, my mom saying, when I wasn't a kid, I was in college, but I was working and going to school and doing this and doing that. And she's like, you cannot burn the candle at both ends. And sure enough, I ended up getting a nasty case of the flu and thought, well, I guess mom was right. But yeah, I mean, when you keep pushing, the human body isn't designed to do that.
No, there's a reason why we need to have sleep. And, some people claim that they don't need much sleep. And yeah, some maybe a little less, some a little more, but it's really important to find that balance for yourself. And if you don't, you may not notice it as quickly, but other people around you will notice, because you are snapping at them, you're being short, you're being temperamental over things. Things are a bigger deal for you. And then you think, oh, well, now I need to go get some pills for my mental health because I'm snapping about things. Well, maybe you need to back off and take care of yourself. It affects our mental health so much when we're going crazy busy. And it's hard to recognize that in time to take care of ourselves.
Sure. And I would think drivers, when they're really pushing themselves, it kind of throws you into a fight-flight type of condition, which is very stressful on the body.
It's very stressful. And the fight or flight syndrome is meant, from our caveman days of using that extra burst of energy to get away from danger or to do something like that. But it wasn't, meant to be continued for days on end or weeks on end or years on end, and, but if we are in too much fight or flight, the wrong part of our brain is getting all the blood, and the part of the brain that is doing the thinking and the logical stuff is not getting as much blood and not as much action. And we tend to do things that don't make sense.
I've heard the theory that we're actually thinking with the reptilian part of our brain, when we're in the fight flight, we're not actually using logic.
Right. Yep. Exactly. And I actually discussed this in episode 10 of my podcast with Sylvia Marusik, and she describes that very well. If listeners want to go back, listen to Crazy Canuck Truckin' Podcast, you can find that anywhere on YouTube or any podcast platform, and listen to Sylvia Marusik, episode 10, and she can describe this very well, what happens when we get into that fight or flight mode.
And when you think about it in the past, 150 years anyway, we've really not done ourselves a favor because we've got electric. So lights can be on. There aren't natural sleep cycles. All of that is really kind of contributed to this problem. And I imagine stress is definitely much higher. And then, of course, when you're a professional driver, you've got a whole new host of stresses that constantly keep somebody on edge. And so taking care of your mental health is super important.
Absolutely. When you think back, and not that many years, people would sit on the front porch and watch traffic go by or people go by, and that was extremely healthy mentally because people are just relaxing. They're getting out of that fight or flight. They may have worked extremely hard, far harder than we do nowadays, but then they were taking the time to kick back and relax. And that was something that we shouldn't forget about. We need to have that time as well to recharge, reset our brain.
And we're so connected today. People need to unplug, and they don't. They'll be relaxing. I see them walking around the neighborhood. They've got, their earpods or earbuds in, and they're listening to something. Hopefully it's music or something relaxing, but they can't just connect with the real world. They have to have something that they're playing with.
It's really an addiction. Yeah, and
yes.
that's how I see it for myself, because a year ago, the reason I started my podcast was all the distressing news with COVID and everything going on, and it was just too hard for me to handle listening to all this bad news all the time. So I shut the radio off. And in the last year, I should finish the story quickly, but yes, I started listening to some podcasts, and I download podcasts at home and then listen to them on the road. But then sometimes I ran out of podcasts, and that's when I started just driving without anything on. And I've done a lot of that in the last year now, where I'll drive for hours on end and not have anything on. And I've found that to be very beneficial. And the time hasn't slowed down for me. The time still goes by, and it's been good to completely unplug, and we sometimes nowadays we call unplugging when we're just listening to music.
Sure. Yeah.
Unplugging really is when we're not listening to anything except our own breathing or nature sounds outside.
Mm-hmm. Now, are there some drivers that would say to you, geez, how do you stay awake with nothing going on?
I would say to them, then they need to look at their sleep patterns. And if you're tired, pull over and have a bit of sleep, because if you're relying on something to keep you awake, whether it's coffee or talking to somebody or listening to something, if you're relying on that to keep you awake and alert going down the road, then you really need to stop, take the time to recharge a little bit, and then get going again. I had a conversation with my son the other day, and he worked some ridiculous hours last week. And he said to me yesterday, he says, after all that time I put in last week, I think I get more done when I take time off. I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It recharges you. Yeah.
You look at people that closer to the equator, they have their siesta time, take their time off in the middle of the day and relax and recharge. And I mean, what are they known for? They're known for hard work and getting stuff done.
You betcha.
There's a
Mm-hmm.
direct correlation there.
You betcha.
And they relax in the hottest part of the day, which makes absolute sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's taking care of themselves. We're talking to David Henry of the Crazy Canuck Truckin' Podcast here on TNCRadio.live. This is the Truckers Network radio show with Shelley Johnson and Tom Kelly. We've got more coming up with David Henry, so definitely stay tuned right here on TNCRadio.live.
This blog is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. 4 simple ways to improve your physical health as a truck driver. Being a truck driver is a rewarding career. However, it's not very rewarding for your physical health. A truck driver's lifestyle makes it difficult for them to be healthy. Because of their lifestyle, truckers are more likely to develop serious health issues like obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, and more. Although a truck driver's lifestyle doesn't promote healthy living, it doesn't mean that a truck driver cannot be healthy while on the road. There's several ways you can improve your health on the road. Here are 4 things you can start doing today to improve your physical health on the road as a truck driver. Avoid harmful foods. Avoiding unhealthy foods is way harder than it sounds. As a truck driver, your healthy food choices are extremely limited. While it may seem impossible to completely cut out unhealthy foods from your diet, it might be a good idea to cut back. You can start cutting back on unhealthy foods by packing meals in your truck. That way, the next time you get hungry on the road, you can eat a much healthier meal instead of eating greasy, high-calorie fast food. Another way you can start cutting back on unhealthy foods is to make a list of unhealthy items you eat every day and start slowly replacing them with a healthier option. For example, if you drink soda 3 times a day, cut back to 2, then to 1, and then none. Stock up on healthy foods. To live a healthier lifestyle, you have to cut back on heavily processed foods. Unfortunately, a truck driver's diet heavily consists of processed foods. Stocking up on healthy groceries is one of the best ways you can improve your physical health. When grocery shopping before your trip, avoid frozen pre-made meals, sodas, fried foods, chips. Instead, look for whole grain, fruits, veggies, and healthy fats. Start exercising. Exercise is essential to a driver's overall physical and mental health. Truck drivers have to get creative to stay fit while on the road. Finding the time to exercise can be a challenge for truck drivers. Drivers spend up to 11 hours a day on the road. After working all day, exercising may seem like the last thing you want to do, but you'll thank yourself later. Exercising a few times a week will not only improve your physical health, but also mental health. Get a good night's rest. The right amount of sleep is crucial for a truck driver. Lack of sleep can make driving dangerous. A study shows that long-haul truck drivers obtain less sleep than the required amount of alertness on the job. Truckers need a good night's sleep to be fully alert and ready to take on the road the next morning. Truck drivers travel several hundred miles each day. To reach their destination on time, they'll have to prioritize sleep so they can be alert and ready to take on the day. Not only is sleep an important factor for job performance, but it's also important for lowering stress levels and improving your immune system. Now, here are some ways to promote better sleep. Turn off electronics an hour before bed. Invest in a good mattress and pillow. Put up curtains in your truck cab. Avoid caffeine before bed. And exercise. This blog was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
Enjoy the best in trucker-style music and comedy weeknights, starting at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on TNCRadio.live.
This is the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly, and we're talking with David Henry with the Crazy Canuck Truckin' Podcast. David, you've had some really good insight here for drivers on how they can take care of themselves for both their physical and mental health. It's appropriate because this is Mental Health Awareness Month, and that's a topic that's important to you.
Yes, it's very important to me, and one that I ignored for many years. And fortunately, I've started realizing that having some mental health issues is not a matter of being weak. You know, it's funny how we look at mental health, you know, compared to other health issues that we deal with. You know, it's always pushed off. You know, like you break a leg, you don't keep walking on that leg. You know that that's not going to help. But when we have a mental stress, you know, we think we're going to keep pushing. Like, why do we do that to ourselves? We keep pushing and we just think we need to push through it. And, you know, go back to that broken leg. Are you going to just say, okay, well, I'll just keep pushing through with a broken leg. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yes, it really is.
That's the way we think.
There's a stigma, I think. People are afraid to say, gee, I've got some mental health issues. They don't want to be labeled. They maybe are perceived themselves as being weak or weird, and you would think in this decade and this century that wouldn't be happening.
You would think, but that's, you know, as people, we tend to think that we are better than others. We're better than whatever label we want to put on it. And what we end up doing is doing things that are beyond our capabilities. And that just, it doesn't make for a happy life when you're trying to push through things thinking that you're something that you're not. You know, I could pretend that I'm a professional hockey player, but the reality is I'm not. You know, I'm not going to have that. I don't have that talent. I don't have that drive. You know, and it's no different with mental issues. If there's things that I can't handle, there's no shame in that. Mm-hmm. It just means that I'm a little different, and maybe I have other things that I deal with that professional hockey players look at and think, oh my goodness, how do you handle that?
Sure.
You know, it's the same thing. We have our strengths and weaknesses, and when we can identify them and work within them, then we become, you know, we use all of the strengths that we have. It's all strength. It's not weakness.
Do you think also that maybe some drivers, if they're having mental health issues, they're afraid to maybe say anything because it could affect their job, and they might not have a driving job?
Yeah. I mean, I got fired for that.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't a pleasant experience. You know, I'd gotten injured, and when I was going to come back, then I was told I was no longer welcome. And, you know, it's not fun, but I'm glad that it happened, because I don't want to work for somebody like that anymore.
No,
you know,
no.
And when I'll put it this way. If you try to ignore your problem and try to push through and pretend you don't have an issue with things, or you don't have some challenges, your company won't like that at all. They won't like that. But if you are honest and say, you know what, that's something I can't really handle, or being pushed this way is not something I can handle, they may not like it, but they will respect that and work with you. And for the most part, I mean, there's always some that are going to be a problem, but we have laws against discrimination like that nowadays, and people are very cautious. But yeah, we don't like being looked at as if we're crazy, you know. And I say, what's the problem with being crazy? Because we all think that there's a normal. We all think that there's something, you know, we're all the same in some ways. No, we're not. What is normal? So I like, that's why I've stayed with the Crazy Canuck theme, is that we're all a little bit crazy. We're all a little bit different. And that's what makes the world go around, and it's beautiful that way.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe we're all stuck in like junior high or middle school where we wanted to be like everybody else. You know?
Yeah, that's very true.
You know, when you're an adolescent, you don't want to be different. I mean, that's like, oh, I've got to wear stuff that everybody else wears and do stuff everybody else does. And
I think the younger generation is coming along in this much better than we are.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also a responsibility of us that are in a little bit older generation to give them the freedom, to give others the freedom to be who they are.
Yeah.
And, I have kids, and some of them like being outside and doing things outside, and some of them don't. But they don't all have to fit the same mold. Some of them are great with computers. Some of them don't want to use a computer at all, but to give them the freedom to be who they are, they'll be much better adjusted adults. I mean, all my kids are adults now, but yeah, I've enjoyed seeing them be different and have their own ways. And it's tough sometimes to let them do that, but it's very important.
Oh, I'm sure that there are times where you want to kind of guide them and say, no, that's really not the direction you want to go. But they have to find out for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And trucking companies that are recognizing that with their drivers, we don't all fit the same mold. The ones that are paying attention to that, they are doing far better these days because drivers love staying there. And if you make a driver happy, guess what? They're going to be telling other people about how happy they are working for their company. And their turnover and their HR will love it because, they don't have to keep looking for drivers. People will want to come work there.
Sure. Well, it's a matter of treating people correctly and kindly and
with respect.
Yes.
We can put up with a lot of things, but when we've been disrespected, we won't respect the people that are disrespecting us.
Right.
We can be nice. I'm not saying that we need to be mean or cruel, but we won't have that same level of respect. And that's so important these days, to respect others and respect their opinions. That's so important these days.
Would you say the companies today in transportation and trucking are more respectful than they were decades ago? I mean, obviously you were describing the big push before e-logs came in and all of that, and companies that really didn't care about the drivers, just the bottom line and make that money.
There are some companies that are good at it. I'm fortunate to work for a company that is very good towards the drivers. But there's still a lot of, there is a lot of companies that don't respect their drivers. And I just look at, if you want a telltale sign, look at their turnover rate. If they have a turnover rate of 100% a year, now they probably don't do a very good job at respecting their drivers. If they have a turnover rate of 10, 15%, chances are that they are doing a far better job at respecting their drivers.
That would be a good indicator. Where would somebody find that information? I would imagine it's out on the internet if they wanted to look there. Or...
Yeah, you can try to find it. A lot of times, if they have a good turnover rate, they will tell you up front.
Okay.
But if they don't have a good turnover rate, then they'll try to hide it. Another way is, if you want to get hired somewhere, how soon can I get in for orientation? If they're running orientation classes every week, and they don't have that many drivers total, well, then that, they're having to run orientation to replace all the drivers all the time that are leaving them.
That would be a good indicator. We're talking with David Henry with the Crazy Canuck Truckin' Podcast here on TNCRadio.live. This is the Truckers Network radio show I'm Shelley Johnson here with Tom Kelly. We've got some great new and more insights from David Henry coming up, so definitely stay tuned for more. He's got some great perspectives, and drivers need to listen. You're listening to TNCRadio.live. 6 safety tips for truck driving in hot weather. Driving in the heat can create dangerous situations for truck drivers. Drivers need to take specific precautions before hitting the road in extreme heat. When there's an incoming heat wave, drivers need to be aware of how to safely drive in these weather conditions. Follow the Truckers Network's 6 safety tips for truck driving in hot weather. Every truck driver needs to complete a pre-trip inspection before driving, especially in hot weather. Check your tires. Heat can have a huge effect on your tires. As the temperature increases, so does the air pressure in your tires. During the hottest months of the year, it's important to frequently check your tire pressure. Frequently checking your tires can save you from a blowout. To get an accurate measurement, wait for your tires to cool down before checking the pressure. The heat and friction from the road causes your tires to warm up, which will cause a rise in tire pressure. Also, don't be afraid to take a break every couple of hours to let your tires cool down. Protect your engine. Not only should you protect yourself from the heat, but you should also protect your engine. One way to keep your engine from overheating is to frequently check the engine oil. The oil keeps the engine cool and keeps the parts running smoothly. Engine coolant is just as important as engine oil. Coolant helps prevent the engine from overheating in extremely hot temperatures. Keep an eye on the coolant temperature gauge while driving. If the gauge goes above the safe temperature, pull over and see what's going on. Failing to look at the situation could lead to engine failure. Also, make sure to check for leaks in the hoses. A cracked hose can lead to engine failure. Check your brakes. Cold and hot weather affect your semi-truck's brakes. When you brake, you create a significant amount of friction, and your brakes become extremely hot. When you add in hot weather, your brakes have an even higher chance of failing. To avoid your brakes from failing, brake gradually to decrease the amount of heat. Also, regularly check your brake pads to ensure they're working properly. Tips to protect yourself from the hot weather. It's just as important to protect yourself during extremely hot weather. Follow these tips to keep yourself cool and safe. Stock up on water. As the temperature increases, you need to increase your water intake. Make sure to always have water in your truck. You never know when you might get stuck in traffic or break down on the side of the road. Wear sunscreen. Many truck drivers forget this step. Even when you're in your truck, you're still exposed to the harmful UVA rays. Make sure to put sunscreen on before hitting the road. Wear light-colored clothes. Light-colored clothing reflects light, and dark-colored clothing absorbs it. Wearing light-colored, loose-fitting clothes helps you stay cooler and more comfortable.
For the latest in traffic, weather, and information, catch the Morning Grind weekdays right here on TNCRadio.live.
This is the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson here with Tom Kelly. We're talking with David Henry with the Crazy Canuck Truckin' Podcast. David, you've had some really tremendous perspectives here for drivers to think about on how they can take care of themselves. What other insights did you want to share with drivers, specifically maybe about mental health?
Well, one subject that I stayed away from for a very long time was the subject of suicide. And when it comes to my own thoughts, I've been there. I won't get into that very much, but what made a difference for me was that I realized one time that, and this was just a few years ago, it's not distant past, but I realized that what would life be like for my family or people that I hang around with? And I don't even say people that love me, but what would it be like for other people? And specifically with my family who do love me, I realized that despite how I would look at myself and feel that life isn't worth living or feel that I'm a failure, despite me thinking that I can't do things well, I'm not the man I used to be. My kids, my family, my wife, especially, they want to see me in person with all of my characteristics than to visit a grave. And that's something that helped me stop going through with suicide, was because I realized that my kids, even though sometimes, and my wife, my family, even though sometimes they are bearing the brunt of stuff I have to deal with, they would rather get through that time, even with all the stress and trauma that comes with that. They would rather get through that and for me to still be around than for me to be gone.
Right.
You know, and that was something that was very key to me. I've said that to other. I've had occasion where people have called me up and said that this is the last time you'll hear from me, because this is it. I'm done. I'm done with life. I'm going to end it. And I say to them, you know, I'm going to miss you, because I don't care what, you know, you're going through tough times, and it's really, it seems very dark, but I won't miss the tough times, but I'll miss all of the good times we have. And I'll miss the times we could reminisce about the fun that we've had. And another analogy I use is, after the rain comes the rainbow and the sunshine. There's no place on earth that rains 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. You know, there's always time of sunshine. There's always time for growth. And as long as we are still breathing, as long as we're still sucking air in and out of our lungs, there's time for us to grow. There's time for us to learn things and to be better. And
absolutely,
that is just, that's so important to me, that not only when somebody's going through a tough time that I try to support them, because I want them to be there in the good times as well, and to make those memories and to reminisce about those memories. And we need to communicate, you know, we need to tell people, you know, that we love them. We need to tell people that we appreciate what they do. If you see somebody backing into a parking spot and they just slide it in first time, no issues, you go up to them and say, hey man, or hey lady, that was awesome. Because you don't know what that person's gone through. Maybe they're backing in and they're thinking, you know what, I'm going to back into this door. I'm going to shut my truck off and I'm going to kill myself.
right.
Because I've just got pushed to do something. I've just been harassed about something. I can't handle it anymore. And you can come up to that person and you can change their life. You can save their life by a good word like that.
And it does seem sometimes that this world doesn't always have that. You hear a lot of the negative, not necessarily the positive, and being praised for doing a good job and being recognized and being told, hey, you're important.
Yeah. I was at a company where I had 4 inspections in a row, all clean. And in a matter of a month, it was crazy. I was getting pulled over for inspections like all the time. I don't know what it was that month. And then the last one, I had forgotten to make a line in my logbook back before we had ELDs. I'd forgotten to make a line. And when the inspector asked me about it, I said, yeah, no, I did stop back, 10 minutes ago, but I forgot to draw the line. And I got written up for that. And guess what? I got a letter in the mail from the safety guy at our office saying, you need to smarten up or you're going to get in trouble.
Wow.
And I went in to see him. I said, look, I have 4 clean ones and 1 with a note on it. Why didn't you say anything to me with all the 4 clean ones? Well, I don't have time to tell everybody what they're doing right. I said, then you need to look at what you're doing, because now you just made me think, I don't care what happens. If you're going to discipline me over something like this, it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better.
Yeah.
And the next time I got inspected, he gave me a call and said, hey, great job getting a clean inspection.
Good for you for saying something.
But that's how it is. We so often will have whole departments that are looking for things that are wrong. Why aren't you pointing out all the things that are right?
Exactly.
You can be right 99% of the time, and all they want to talk to you is about the 1%. So I encourage companies or other drivers, take the time to recognize the 99% of the stuff that's going right.
Yeah, absolutely. I've thought more than once that growing up as children, we get a lot more praise. But then when we go into adulthood, it's like, well, it's expected. And you don't really hear anything until you do something wrong. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a big shock.
Yeah. It's the stuff I've heard, Shelley, people that have talked to me afterwards. There's one guy that I found out afterwards. He says, I saved his life. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'd never talked to the guy. He says, I saw some of your posts on social media and saw the things you go through and how honest you are with things. And he says, I realized that I could also be like that. And it was a year later when he finally did message me and say, you saved my life.
Wow.
And we don't always know what impact we'll have on somebody.
Right.
I was at a fast food restaurant a few months ago, and I was paying with a $20 bill. So there's a fair amount of change left. And I said to the lady, just pay, use the rest of the money for the next person in line. And the person in line turned around and looked at me and says, why are you doing that? I said, I don't know. I just thought it would be a good thing to do right now. And she broke down in tears and she said, I've had a really shitty day. And thank you. And that's awesome. I turned around and I got my food and I walked out. But I don't know where that lady was. I don't at what stage in her life, but It just, at the time, it felt to me like I needed to do something. And it doesn't always make sense. And it can be a little embarrassing sometimes. The lady says, why do you do that? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. And then she just broke down in tears. She says, I've had a really shitty day. Thank you.
You made her day. And that's what people need to be doing. I definitely want to explore some more of this here, David. We're going to be going to break. We're talking to David Henry from the Crazy Canuck Truckin' Podcast here on TNCRadio.live. Definitely stay tuned for more coming up. Being on the road can make you feel free, excited, and adventurous. It can also make you feel lonely and even depressed. So it's important for truckers, especially long-haul truck drivers, to bring items on the road to keep them entertained. Truckers have 10 hours off for a 24-hour day. Depending on how long the driver sleeps, there can be several hours where the trucker has nothing to do. We've broken down the list of essential items to keep in your truck in several different categories. The second category we talk about is entertainment. Laptop or tablet. Bring a laptop or tablet and stream your favorite movies or TV shows. If you don't have access to Wi-Fi or a personal hotspot, you can still bring your laptop, some DVDs, and watch a movie. Game console. Playing games is a great way to keep yourself entertained. You can also play with your friends. Bring your Xbox or PlayStation and set up your own gaming station in the cab of your truck. Puzzles, crosswords, or cards. If gaming or watching movies don't interest you, bring some puzzles or crosswords to solve. You can also get a deck of cards and play games like Solitaire, March Same Rank, Devil's Grip, Klondike. Books. Reading books is a great way to pass time and improve brain connectivity. Some popular trucker books include The Highway by C.J. Box, Blue Highways by William Least Heat Moon, Paradise Valley by C.J. Box, Rough Way to the Highway by Kelly Mac McCoy. Exercise equipment. Truck drivers' health suffers from the lack of exercise. Bringing exercise equipment on the road will keep you entertained and improve your overall well-being. There's several portable exercise equipment items you can store in the cab of your truck. They include dumbbells, resistance bands, kettlebells, and running shoes.
You're listening to TNCRadio.live. Remember to tune into the Truckers Network Show with Shelley Johnson. Weekdays at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern.
This is the Truckers Network Radio Show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly. We're talking with David Henry with the Crazy Canuck Truckin' Podcast. David, in the last segment, you were talking about suicide, and I was wondering, are there maybe some warning signs or anything that drivers can look for when they've possibly reached that kind of breaking point?
Well, I will say up front, I'm not trained in this, but I have lived experience. Mm-hmm. And I guess to boil it all down, if somebody that's talkative normally is not talkative, if somebody that is quiet and starts talking, anytime a person is different from what they are normally like, then there could be an issue. For me, I'm a bit of a talker. I mean, who would have known that when I run a podcast? But when I get quiet, when I'm not making suggestions, when I'm not wanting to discuss things, I'm not really in a very good place. And trying to get me to talk isn't necessarily the thing to do either. But telling me that you're there for me, put an arm around me, whatever, showing that you care makes a difference for me. And so I'd say just watch out for your fellow drivers or the people that you know. And when things seem different, then you don't have to pry into their lives. You don't have to ask them if there's something going wrong. You just have to be there for them, and you just have, this is the way I go about it is, somebody can say, man, you can tell that they're having a really hard time. And they may not appreciate it at the time, but it's like, I appreciate you. I'm thankful for who you are. I really enjoy, I enjoy working for you. I enjoy being with you. And they could be kind of snappy and grumpy, but that's okay. Don't let that deter you from doing what you can to help out the others. Afterwards, they may come back. They won't always, but they may come back and say, I really appreciate you saying that. So I didn't accept it very well at the time, but I did know that you cared. And showing people that you care will make a big, big difference.
Absolutely. Has it been harder with all the shutdowns with COVID, because obviously drivers are not being, they're not able to talk to each other face to face. I would think being out of touch has made this more dangerous for drivers that might be at that breaking point.
Thank goodness we have social media. You know, if this had happened back in the early 90s, I don't know what I would have done. It's been the toughest year of my career, for sure, by far the toughest year. But I also think it's been one of the most rewarding years I've had, because I have had to dig deeper. I've had to focus more on my health, mentally, physically, spiritually. I've had to focus on all of that much more than when times have been easier. And so, yeah, it has been a very tough year. But you know what? The human body, mind is fantastically built, and each one of us are very amazing in how we are. And it's amazing what we can go through and bounce back from.
We are pretty resilient when you think about it, the whole design. Yeah.
Well, doctors told me once in 91 that the best case scenario was that I'd be a vegetable. So you're talking to Mr. Potato Head right now, which is pretty impressive.
That was after you had a wow. Hey, well, I'm glad you can laugh about that, and that's healthy. Yeah, because you had a major wreck.
I had a farm accident, and shouldn't have survived. And you know, the doctors really didn't think I would last the night.
Wow.
And I did, and they figured the best case scenario was that it'd be a vegetable. So if you're going to be able to pick your vegetable, then I'm going to be Mr. Potato Head.
Okay, there you go. And look at
Bald
you now.
On top, chubby. Yeah. So, yeah.
You prevailed, and good for you. And now you're sharing that message with a lot of different. You cover a lot of different topics with your podcast, and you're helping a lot of drivers, I think.
I hope so. I mean, I've had 4 pretty major head injuries without counting all of the other injuries I've had and all the other knocks to the head. My body's been through a lot of trauma. And back when I was suicidal, I was like, why am I still alive? And then Sylvia Marusik in one rehab program came up to me and put her finger on my chest and said, you need to remember who you are. And I'm a helper. I like to help people out. And so I really feel that that's the only reason I'm alive, is to try and pass on this message to others that hard times don't last. There's always easier times afterwards. After the rain comes a rainbow.
There you go.
And sunshine helps growth. But we also need those tough times to help us learn, to help us, to shape and mold us, so we can be strong. You know, a tree is getting battered by wind. What does the tree do? It sinks down deeper roots.
That's right.
So it can't be blown around as much.
Like the song, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? Yep.
That's right.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, and that is that's what humans are about, really, when you think about it, the human spirit. It's very determined. And you're an inspiration, I think, with your podcast. And I think your timing was perfect. All of the desperate danger headlines that were going on last year, it was a breath of fresh air for you to put this podcast together.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, Shelley. And I'm really thankful to you and to Tom for inviting me on and for playing segments of my podcast, because it's been fun. and I'm celebrating 1 year on June 1st. So that's pretty impressive, in my opinion.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah. So.
Yes, we really enjoy your podcasts. For those who may not have listened to your podcast, where can they find it on the internet?
Well, I usually tell all the older people to go to YouTube, because almost everybody can find YouTube, and search Crazy Canuck Truckin'. And everybody knows how to spell crazy, I think. Canuck is Canuck, and Truckin' is trucking without the G, so Truckin'. And my channel will pop up there. You can subscribe to that. I have a co-host named Bridget Riedel, who is very good when my brain locks up. And yeah, she's awesome. And then if you go on to Spotify or Google Podcasts or Apple, iTunes, anywhere else, you just search for Crazy Canuck Truckin'. Same spelling, same everything, and you'll find the channel. And subscribe, automatically download, please. Send me comments. I love hearing from people, hearing what they have to say, and it's been fun.
For those who are listening, sometimes when you hear somebody talking about suicide, it gets you thinking. And if you need somebody to talk to, if you're in Canada, you can call 1-833-456-4566. That's 1-833-456-4566. And in the States, you can dial 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. And they're there to help you. They're there to listen, and they do listen. And you can trust them. It's a safe place.
Yes. Absolutely.
Thank you so very much, David, for sharing your perspectives. I think this has been really valuable for drivers, and I really appreciate you being on the show with us.
Thank you, Shelley. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Tom.
We've been talking with David Henry of the Crazy Canuck Truckin' podcast. You're listening to TNCRadio.live. This is the Truckers Network radio show. We've got the Evening Surge coming up next. Definitely stay tuned for more right here on TNCRadio.live. You're listening to TNCRadio.live, Houston, Texas. This station is owned and operated by MSICO LLC, a privately held Texas corporation.
When car shopping, you meant business. You ace vehicle history searches and test drives. Now you've got your wheels. If you manage that, you can get your retirement